Hello, David Moore of Equity Advantage, and today's question is in the 1031 exchange, can I defer taxes on property I own free and clear? And part two of that question is what 1031 exchange rules should I be aware of? I'd say I'm going to just jump ahead in the second part and just say you should be aware of all the rules, but and be aware of them before you get started. So, as in anything, it's better the more knowledge you have, keep yourself out of trouble, do things right from the very beginning. It's the best thing you do. So people are always asking when I'd like to know about an exchange, and I say when they're getting ready to buy a property, because at some point they're going to be relinquishing that thing, and it's a good idea that they understand going into it what's going on. Keep yourself out of trouble. So part one of that question, once again, is in a 1031 exchange, can I defer tax on property I own free and clear? The tax consequence of a transaction has nothing to do with debt and equity. And one of the biggest misunderstandings in 1031, I think, is what the requirements of an exchange are to be totally tax deferred. And I'll hear lots of people say, well, you have to replace debt in an exchange, and that's totally untrue. We use something called the napkin test. So when we're looking at basis and gain, that's important to justify the transaction. It really doesn't tell us much about what has to happen. The napkin test, which was actually created by a gentleman named Marvin Starr out of San Francisco, and he wrote out this formula on a napkin during a break in a seminar. And so that napkin test says you must go across or up in value and equity. Debt can go away two ways. One, by going down in value, which triggers tax because you went down in value. The other way debt goes away is by adding cash to a transaction, which is always fine. Government has no problem with you adding money. They just don't want you pulling money out without a tax consequence. So once again, in response to the answer to the question is, no, it doesn't matter if the property's got no equity or owned outright. The exchange is going to defer taxes. And really, if you look at the crash, during that crash period, we actually did a number of transactions where there were foreclosures or short sale. No money would come into us, and yet the taxpayer had a question: do I want to pay tax, or do I want to come out of pocket, roughly the same amount of money and go buy something? So we would do transactions. Equity is irrelevant. You're looking at basis and gain, which has nothing to do with your equity in a property, and it's merely a tax calculation. So part B, what rules should be aware of in the exchange? You've heard me say it before. I like my four basics. It's got to be an exchange. The thing has to be set up as an exchange before close. If it closes and you call up later, even later that day, if you've got the ability to touch money, actual or constructive receipt, you've got taxes. So one, it's got to be an exchange. Two, what's given received have to be of like kind. Like kind requirement, as you're aware, we lost personal property with tax reform, so we're just dealing with real property now. So any real property held for investments, like kind with any real property, it's your intent to hold as an investment. And that means you can go out of that single family rental into an office building, strip mall, place at the beach to retire into. All those are fine. Three, we have to satisfy that napkin test, which we just talked about. And then finally, we've got to have continuity of vesting. And continuity of vesting is actually the second biggest headache we've got in the exchange world, only to the timelines. So I hope that answers the question for you, and I look forward to having you back. Thank you for your time today.